I the asshole for uninviting my cousin, brother, uncle and dad to my wedding over a prank? I 22 grew up in a family where men prank and tease each others. Ever since my fiancé, Tim 23, and I got engaged, my cousin, brother, dad and uncle joked about running some tests to see what type of man Tim is. They've done stuff like forcing him to play chess 4 times in a row, secretly slashed his tires to see if he'd fix it himself like a man or get help like those Lizzie guys. They'd asked him questions like what joke he'd like to tell his future mill, his opinions on abortion, Jesus, gender equality etc. They also tested his fishing and hunting skills, overwhelmed him with hypothetical scenarios to test his decision-making abilities/mental strength. They kept calling him slow and soft but he has medical condition, asthma, but they think he's making excuses. I demanded they stop, but dad said this is just typical stuff men challenge each others with and said that I was ruining the fun. Last week, they took Tim on a 3-day trip and hid his inhaler. He left them and returned in 7 hours and told me. I was seething after he said they admitted to hiding it as a challenge. I exploded on them when they returned. Cousin asked if little Timmy ran to me to tattle. I yelled that all 4 of them are uninvited to my wedding. My brother freaked out saying it was a prank and they were going to give it back. Dad said they'll apologize if I insist, but Tim will have lost the little respect they gained for him and in their eyes will always be the soft college kid who's not up for the challenge. I called him and the others awful then I left. My cousin is begging that we talk. My uncle has been quiet, but dad is so mad and now he's getting mom involved to get me to reconsider this decision. But I keep refusing to re-invite them. Mom is saying I'm exaggerating and should let bygones be bygones and not let this ruin my relationship with my family. Am I the asshole for making it my hill to die on, or am I exaggerating? Am I the asshole for blowing up at my husband for lying to me about my sister and her baby leaving when he actually kicked her out? My sister, 20, got out of a terrible relationship and moved in with me and my husband and brought her 5-month-old son. She's dealing with a handful of issues from PPD to depression. I asked my husband if he'd be okay with her moving in and he said absolutely. Not just this, but he was the one who picked her/brought her home. She stayed for 2 weeks and helped around the house. My husband started complaining about the baby crying, but a newborn is expected to cry especially at night. He said it causes him stress, although I suggested he put on earbuds. He suddenly told me to forget it and so I did. Last week, I had to go out of town to attend a friend's funeral without my husband. He said he wanted to stay with my sister to make sure she's okay. I returned home the next day and didn't find her or her baby home. My husband said she contacted a friend in another town and wanted to move with them and left that morning. He handed me a letter he claimed was from her. This felt so odd, especially after reading the letter. I called her phone many times, but turned out my husband found it and said she must have left it behind. I was worried I had no means of contacting her to make sure she was okay. I contacted relatives but they knew nothing. Yesterday, I got a call from an unknown number and it was her. We talked and she told me that she didn't leave on her own, but my husband kicked her out after telling her that she was no longer welcome, and she needed to take responsibility for her decisions. I was in shock as she explained that she's not with a friend but at a shelter and she has no money. I waited till he got home and I blew up at him. He admitted he faked the letter and hid her phone, then argued that it's his house too and he has a say. But he shouldn't have lied to me about my sister and causing her to be homeless. He said I was being unfair and wrong to lash out at him for wanting peace in his home. I went upstairs and refused to argue anymore. I told him I am going to pick her up tomorrow and he said he'd change the locks while I'm gone and I won't be allowed to bring her home. I'm thinking of going to a hotel, but he kept saying that I'm letting my sister affect our lives by prioritizing her, but there's a baby involved, my nephew, and I can't leave him homeless. I get that it's house too, but I don't see why he's so against her staying. Am I the asshole for serving my sister's husband dinner using toy utensils? I, 17 male, moved in with you sister after my parents kicked me out for coming out. Another story, they said I'll be here temporarily till I get back to normal, which I don't think I will, lol. But anyways, so I moved in with my sister and her husband about a month ago. For your information, she does everything around the house. I started helping here and there, as well as looking after a 2-year-old niece, and now she's 6 months pregnant. Bill does nothing because he's the breadwinner as he claims, but he's taken it a bit too far. E.g., he'd tell her to start his laundry once he takes off his clothes, put dinner on the table once he's home, get the shower ready and so on. They fight a lot cause my sister is exhausted and burned out. I usually put my headphones on and mind my own business, but 2 nights ago there was a lot of commotion once Hart home, so I went to see what the issue was. Turns brother-in-law was complaining about dinner and my sister was too exhausted to get up. I mean, the dinner was already cooked but he wanted her to put it for him on the table. I told my sister I'd do it, but instead of using their kitchen utensils, I used my niece's toy utensils like toy cup, toy plate, toy fork and knife and a tiny napkin. I put the food on the toy plate and the drink in the toy cup while brother-in-law was in the shower. He then came into the kitchen and sat down and stared at the plate for a few seconds. He then looked at me and asked what the hell this was, and whether I was joking. I told him if he wanted to act like a helpless child, then he might as well get treated like one. He began yelling and my sister came inside. He then threw the napkin and stormed off upon saying that I disrespected him and that he'll let my parents know about what I did. My sister saw what I'd done and started laughing. I went inside my room but the argument didn't stop. Now he's expecting an apology for me for meddling in his marriage and pulling this crappy stunt on him. I could be TA for this, but I was just so mad for my sister and also sick and tired of being sick and tired of the nightly fighting over dinner. Am I the asshole for screenshotting messages guys sent me and sending them to their mothers? I'm an 18-year-old girl who is in college ATM. I've been getting bullied/harassed by 3 guys in my class who have taken to messaging me online with rather gross/harassing messages and NSFW pictures that I'm sure you can all fill in the gaps without me going into detail. I should have reported them or just blocked them, but I had enough, so I screenshot every message they'd sent me and found their mothers through their Facebook pages and sent screenshots to them, including an explanation of who I am and how their sons have been bothering me. Their mothers were horrified and shocked by what I sent them, explaining what was going on, and all 3 are on my side. Some of my friends think this is genius and exactly what they deserve, but some of my other friends think I took it too far and it was out of line to put that on their mothers, and also how I don't know what their home life is like. Am I the asshole for doing this? Should I have gone about it another way? Am I the asshole for banning my mother-in-law from the house after I discovered that she's installed a camera in the bedroom? My husband, 33 male, got into a car accident almost a month ago. He's been bedridden due to a back injury and I've been his primary caregiver. The pressure has been too much from my mother-in-law. She keeps telling me to take care of him and be there for him constantly. She begged me to take time of work and I did, asked me to send her hourly updates about his condition, first 2 weeks, but when I don't she'd get mad and cause an issue. She visits every day but doesn't do anything to help. Alternatively, she'd list all the things I should or shouldn't do. The family keeps telling me she's just worried sick for her son, so I try to stay calm. Days ago, she called to berate me about not replacing the sheets quickly. I had no idea how she found out since my husband didn't call her. My sister-in-law called me to tell me that her mom installed a camera in the bedroom to see if I was taking proper care of her son. I was stunned. After searching the room I found the camera. I called my mother-in-law and had a huge fight with her. She admitted it and said she was just feeling concerned and wanted to make sure her son was being cared for, despite him calling her every day. I yelled at her, telling her that she's no longer allowed into my home after this. She lost it and went on a rant about how I'm stopping her from seeing her son and that not seeing him will literally make her sick herself. The family called me later to get me to back out of this decision, but I told them she breached my privacy and took advantage of the situation. They said I'm taking it too personally and that I can't blame a concerned mother for wanting to make sure her son's fine, especially since she listed things she thought I was doing wrong. I ended the conversation, but my husband is upset, telling me I'm being vindictive and that if his mom can't come then he'll move there with her. We argued, then I went outside and he's been silent ever since. Am I the asshole for removing the bedroom lock after my husband ignored a family emergency? Background about my husband: he stays up late at night and has to wake up early to go to work. So when he gets home at 5, he has to get his 2 hours nap so he could both make up for lack of sleep and also be ready to stay up late to play with his console. He values his sleep and has one rule in the house that he enforces strictly, which is to not be interrupted while sleeping. He literally put a sign on the bedroom door saying "Do not wake me up under any circumstances, just no." Unless someone's hurt or dead though. In this case he said he still wouldn't be of much help anyway. The kids and I would sometimes wake him up, but for serious reasons. He got mad and started locking the door. I get no access to the room for 2 hours, but that's not the main problem. This past Tuesday, my 3-year-old son had hot oil spill on his hand while his 14-year-old sister was cooking. I heard him scream and saw that the oil was covering his hand and half of his arm. I brought the first aid kit, but he was in so much pain and his skin looked really bad. I rushed to wake my husband up. I kept knocking but got no response, so I tried to open it, but it was locked. I spent a while between knocking on the door, he had his phone turned off, and getting dressed after my daughter asked the neighbor to drive us to the hospital. I couldn't waste more time cause my son was crying. The neighbor took us to the hospital and I couldn't help feel livid the whole time. We got home and my husband was pacing around asking wherever we were and why I didn't answer his texts. I blew up on him after I showed him our son's injury and told him that I pounded on the door to wake him up, but he said he had his earbuds on and didn't hear a thing. I called him reckless and neglectful for ignoring a family emergency. He said I could say the same thing about myself for leaving our son unsupervised and causing him to get a burn. I stopped arguing and went to remove the bedroom door lock. He started yelling at me saying I had no right. I refused to respond. I just walked off to calm down. He didn't stop complaining, calling me bossy and saying that by removing the lock I've destroyed his peace and quiet and caused him sleep deprivation. He's insisting I put it back, but I refused.